Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of BaatShaat. Joining me today is none other than Dennis, our good old friend. And as you know, he's pretty upfront and honest. And we're going to do a very honest review of Pakistan versus England series. I'm not going to say Test or T20 because we're gonna review it all. You've seen many reviews. You must have for sure. You must have seen a lot of people talk about it. But I guarantee you, nobody's probably done it this honestly. But I'll bring Dennis on in no time, and then we'll get started. So join me after the break. Dennis, welcome again to BaatShaat.
Gee, how are you?
Great to have you.
What's going on? What are we going to talk about?
Well, before we jump into this honest review of Pakistan versus England series, what an anticlimax today's game was, Australia versus England. What happened there? 39 off 36. They had the game in the bag, Australians did. What happened?
So first thing, as you can see by my disheveled look, I've just got out of bed.
Oh boy.
And so, truthfully, I haven't seen the game, and I don't even know what happened. So let's just assume that it was an international T20, and no one really cares.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I don't think Aussies cared either because they wanted they lost it.
It's more exciting that they've announced the end of the PSL. I'm more interested in that than England playing Australia in a one-off T20 that no one will ever remember as of this morning.
Absolutely. That's so true. So, I'll go to the Pakistan-England series soon, but PSLs and what are your thoughts on just those remaining games? Good thing they're happening, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I think I've had a few chats with a few of the owners about this when COVID happened. And, there was some really outspoken ones like Ali Khan Tareen who said, no, we have to play the matches. And in fact, he came out and said, don't give me the trophy for finishing on top of the table because the competition isn't finished. I don't want the trophy. I want to win the trophy. I don't want to be given it. And Ali's driver is that he wants more opportunities for his kids to play and therefore get exposure and give them a career. That's his only driver. He's not interested in the trophy. He'd rather blood more kids like Zishan Ashraf and Muhammad Ilyas and these guys and give them the exposure. Guys, anyone who lives in Lahore will think this is the best thing ever because finally got a chance to win something. So the Royal Challengers Bangalore, I call them, always last. At least now they've got a chance to maybe make the finals. But I think it's going to be compromised. The competition was 6 months ago. We forget because I was there. It was so long ago. By the time from March to November is a long time, and I'm not sure how many of the international players will be flying back to Pakistan. From an Australian perspective, to even leave the country is really hard because at the moment there's a blanket ban on leaving the country because of COVID, unless you get an exemption because your name's Steve Smith and you're flying to England.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if I was offered to go back in November, I don't think I would go to Pakistan, at the moment, not for any other reason than COVID's not under control and I don't want to bring that back home. So I think I think it'll be a little bit compromised, but, looking for purity is probably the wrong lens to look through. I think we just need to celebrate the fact that the tournament is going to finish. The kids will get more of a chance to play again. They're on TV. Cricket's back. And I think that's a positive thing. Just for God's sake, please don't let Lahore win because we will never hear the end of it until for 100 years. Everyone will go, yeah, man. But remember 2020, we won the COVID PSL. You'll do.
So you're saying Lahore's the only team super excited and ready to go at this point?
Lahore's super excited because they think they can win something. Karachi's super excited because there's more matches to fix for them. So that's what's going on there. And then Quetta's a little bit excited because they thought they could still make the finals, being last year's champions, but they can't. And then Multan, I think, Multan should win. Let's be honest. They were so good during the regular season today.
They were completely dominating the tournament through and through.
The interesting one will be Zelmi. I think it all comes down to Cami Akmal. If Cami Akmal turns the dial up to 11, no one can beat them. But let's see.
The funny thing is, 11 of the Zalmi players were in action in Pakistan versus England series. You think they'll be the only team up and running by the time that comes back?
Yeah, I mean they're in a good state. Java Afridi runs a wonderful franchise. The other interesting thing, though, because the Sri Lankan Premier League or the Lankan League is going to be on at the same time. Yeah. So, and obviously, I think Zelmi have a team there. The Gaul Gladiators has been launched with Nadim Omar. So, it'll be interesting to see how many players leak out to the Lankan League. Do you stay in Pakistan for 3 matches and get paid $2,000, or do you go to the Lankan League and take another $50,000? And there's going to be there's a lot of competing things going on.
So it's big money. So I don't know how much the hype would be to finish off this PSL. We'll find out when we get.
I think it'll be huge. I think as soon as I think it starts, it's going to be monstrous. Don't forget how big it was back in February and March. It was out of control. Absolutely. To anybody that was there, to anybody that went to a match, to anybody that was even in the cities when this was happening, I've never seen anything like it. It was like a festival. And it's going to finish and someone's going to hold the cup up, and it means a lot to a lot of people back in Pakistan, right? Because this symbolism of being able to have your own tournament at home and not in the Emirates is huge.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait till it's not huge, and because it's just normal. And when it's normal again, then it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I think hopefully, by the time we get to the next edition of PSL, things subside a bit. COVID leaves us, and goes far away, so we can actually have some normal cricket. Because I was talking to Ian Bishop today, and he was talking about cricket biosecure bubble.
Yeah.
What have you heard on that? Is it pretty taxing on players? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a few examples of these biosecure bubbles going on around the world, right? At the moment, obviously in England, we saw it with the West Indies and with Pakistan. Here in Australia, we have it for our Australian Football League. It's happening at the moment. And just this week, so everybody's up in Brisbane, in Queensland at the moment, because it's the only state that doesn't have COVID and all our borders are shut. So, we can't even cross the borders here in Australia at the moment. And in Victoria, where I live in Melbourne, you're not allowed to go more than 5 kilometres from your house. Wow. It's pretty heavy. But even in Queensland, where you have the sun shining and the nice beaches and the girls in bikinis, the guys still can't stay in their bubble. Two of the players from two of the guys from one of the football teams got caught at a strip club, which obviously would never happen in Pakistan. And so now they got fined $100,000. So what's that? That's like 10 million rupees and sent home and banned for half of next year's season because they've risked everybody's safety, right, with the virus. So, it's hard. You're asking young men who are typically under 30 years of age who are to calm down and just sit in a room and do nothing. And to be honest, during the PSL, the other thing people forget is that's exactly what happened during the PSL. Everyone was locked down, not because of COVID, because of security. And the players couldn't leave the hotels. They couldn't walk the streets. I was lucky because I wasn't a player. So I just snuck out of every hotel, and people look at me and said, no, I'm a broadcaster or something, go away. Because they weren't going to let me out of the hotels either. But you could see by the end, I was there nearly 3 weeks. And by the end of the 3rd week, the players were just pulling their hair out because there's only times you can go. There's only so many times you can go to Sarfraz Ahmed's room and watch repeats of some crap movie from the 80s, right? People got so bored. They're just sitting in the coffee shops looking at people and waiting for the next guy to go, sir, can I have an autograph? That's what was happening.
Absolutely. What Ian Bishop was saying, he sees his wife drive by the hotel and he hasn't seen her since June. He hasn't met her in person since June. Yeah. How tough that could be for anyone out there, right?
Yeah.
You talked about we talked about the biosecure bubble. The series that just concluded, just ended, Pakistan versus England, the test. Do you think that Pakistan couldn't live up to the hype? West Indies had some troubled times as well prior to Pakistan getting there. You think that the whole biosecure bubble, the whole confinement had anything to do with that, Dennis?
I think they would have played cricket for 12 months. And then you had a really unusual way to lead into a tour. No one's had any practice. No one's done anything. Everybody's stressing about their families and this virus. So I'm not too focused about the results. I think you could almost treat it as a restart, right? Anything could happen. And the reality is Pakistan should have won that series. They should have won the first test. And then choked, and then the next two were washouts, and that's it. So, and the same with the West Indies series. West Indies could have won that series, or at least drawn that series. So, I think the takeaway for the Test series for me is I don't believe Misbah knows what the best team is. I don't think he's worked out what his best team is. And even in the first Test where he played Shadab Khan, if you remember, as the all-rounder, and to be honest, Shadab almost won you the match, but he also lost you the match. And I'll come back to that in a sec. No, he's batting. I'll come back to that in a second. This is my theory. But he stuck by that for one match, and then he changed it. And then Babar Azam turns up, and Shadab's gone. And then the bowlers, it was just, I don't know, it's just all a bit strange. And I'm just not sure he's got his top six right. I'm not sure he knows if he wants a bowling all-rounder or not. And the reality is, and I'll say this till I die, Australia went for 15 years trying to play a bowling all-rounder, and it didn't work. It doesn't work. You have to have – Test cricket is proven over 150 years. 6 batsmen, a wicket-keeper, 4 best bowlers, done. This bowling all-rounder rubbish at number 6 doesn't work. All it does is mean your batting is weaker. And the way cricket is won is whoever has the most runs wins. So you need people that can make runs. And I can't remember the last time a bowling all-rounder won a Test match for their country. I can't name one. Maybe Imran Khan in the 80s. Like, that's how far back we got to go.
That's the only name that comes to my head. Yeah, exactly.
We tried it with Shane Watson. We tried it with Hilton Cartwright. We tried it with Mitch Marsh. We tried it with so many players. Moses Enriques. It doesn't work. Yeah. The but though is Shadab Khan should probably be in the Test team. I know he's only 21, but there's something about me that says he should be in there if you back him in like a Steve Smith, because I think he can bat. And I think if you leave him at number 6, the bowling will drop away and he could become one of the better batsmen. Like, he could become a top 10 Test batsman in the world in 3 or 4 years' time if you give him enough time.
So does he ever remind you of like what Ravi Jadeja does for India? It comes in, he's very energetic in the field.
He's different to Ravi. You got to remember, Ravi's got 2 triple hundreds in Ranji Trophy, right? Ravi. And then, so he's done that, and Ravi was also the number 1 Test bowler and ODI bowler in the world at a point in time.
That's true.
So they're very different. But Ravi's moved more into like a Shahid Afridi mold, which is do nothing, had one good game, then do nothing for a long time, right? I think Shadab Khan's batting is better than Ravi Jadeja. Shadab Khan has a really good technique. Yeah. And I can see him being a flamboyant number 6. So when I grew up, I'm probably a little bit older than you, Salman. You wouldn't know it, but I would be. When I grew up, number 6 was where you put your young stars until they were good enough to be 3 or 4. And so in an Australian context, that was Ricky Ponting started there, Steve Waugh started there, Michael Clarke started there. They're all number 6s, right? These days, we expect to pick someone out of the PSL who's 19, they've played one good season like Azhar Ali, and we'll go, put him at number 3 in the Test team. No, that's not how it works. It doesn't work. Exactly. The only players, I can't think of too many players that have been an absolute success, ripped straight out of T20 and put in the Test team. David Warner was one.
Yeah.
So, he was picked in the Test team on the back of making a 70-odd in a T20 match, and they said, let's try it, and it worked. On the back, but I can't think of many others that have had a long career because they started in T20 and made the move, right? So Test cricket, you need to build and the layers upon layers and build the foundations. And so what I like about Shadab Khan, coming back to my first point, I think if you played him at number 6 and you used him as an occasional 5th bowler, and by occasional, I'm talking 4 overs every second match.
Yeah.
Wow. Because your fifth bowler doesn't win your Test matches. By the time your 5th bowler is bowling, the match is over. You already got 300 runs on the board, right?
Absolutely.
So if your best 4 bowlers can't do it, you're out of the match. So the 5th bowler does nothing other than give them a rest, but they're not going to win you a match, right? So the 5th bowler could be anybody. It doesn't matter. But the thing with Shadab Khan in the first Test, he made 40-odd. You remember, he came out and made 40-odd, and he straightened the ship with Rizwan. But then he hit out, and he got caught for 40-odd, playing a stupid shot at a time when all he had to do was just recalm himself for 5 minutes and go make another 40, because it's a Test match, it's not a T20, and he didn't, and it cost Pakistan the match. That dismissal cost Pakistan 50 or 60 runs in that partnership, and they would have won the match. It would have been enough. It had nothing to do with his bowling. He wasn't there as a bowler. He was picked as a batsman at number 6. So I played number 7, I think. So I would play him at 6, Rizwan at 7, and I would say, shut up. I want you for the next 18 months, you bat at number 6 in our test team every time you're the first picked. And if in 18 months you average over 40, you're there for life, and we'll bring you into a 3 or 4 by the time you're 24 or 25. That's the planning that needs to happen, and Pakistan don't think that way. Pakistan keep looking for the next dude off the street who played tape ball and was 7'2" and whatever, right? The planning is not there. And so I was really excited when Misbah picked Shadab in that first test. I said, this is exciting stuff. Misbah has now elevated himself from a level 2 coach to which is what he claims he is, to a strategic thinker. I can see a plan here. And then he dropped it after one test and brought Babar Azam in. And I'm like, for Shadab. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but I don't get it. Because you put a peg in the sand before the first match. You've got to, for 3 tests, you've got to play through. Now Shadab thinks, what did I do wrong? I took a couple of wickets. I made 40. I got dropped. He's 21. The kid's,
You're playing with his head.
It's not good. It's not good.
Did he play Shadab where he should have played Fawad, and did he play Fawad where he should have played Shadab?
I think Fawad should have played instead of Shafiq. And I think playing Shadab was excellent. I thought that was probably the best test selection I've seen in 2 or 3 years from a strategic. I think playing Shadab was the best choice of a player as a test selection, as making sense for a long-term play that I've seen for a long time for any country. I saw that and I thought, that's really clever. I can see what this is doing. And then he dropped it. So I hope he goes back at the next test series and puts him back in. He might not be ready. He's only 21. But there's 12, 13 or 14 years out of Shadab Khan you can get. He could make – Shadab Khan could be a 7,000 or 8,000 run test cricketer. Easily.
Those are big words. Oh, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to play him. Steve Smith started when he was 21 as a leg spinner.
Yeah.
And over time, I'm not saying Shadab's going to be Steve Smith, but Steve Smith's now got 7,000 test runs or something, 8,000 test runs.
Yeah.
And he's still got 2 or 3 years left, right?
And to be honest, nobody cares about Steve Smith's technique. It's the runs he scores and how he scores them.
It's not about the technique. It's about seeing the talent and backing it in and giving that. And you know what? There's 1,000 people that probably are better batsmen than Shadab Khan in Pakistan. Yeah. There must be, right? There's 250 million people. But you don't become a great test batsman just because you've got good technique. You become a great test batsman because you have confidence in yourself. It's all the mental stuff. And so back him in. Make this kid feel like we've chosen you. You're our Michael Clark for the next generation. We're going to back you in, son. And play him and play him and play him and play him, and you'll get the rewards from this. You'll get the rewards because he's actually a really good kid. He's a really clever kid. He's a nice kid. He wants to work hard. And you know what I love about him? Like the bit you said about Jadeja, which I do agree, is he's always got a smile on his face and he always wants to be involved. He throws himself around to the ball. Even when he's making mistakes in the field or batting, he's just got this massive smile. And how can you not warm to that?
He reminds me so much of the old Pakistan. He plays with a lot of heart. He's there. He's going to win or lose, but he's there. Like he puts his 100%. You saw very up and close what he did in PSL as a captain of Islamabad, right? You saw what he was able to achieve. So, sticking to these young guns, I'm going to go to another not so young gun, which is Asad Shafiq. You talked about him. You briefly touched on him. Is Pakistan or Misbah sticking with the old horses just because they were very loyal to him, or is it because they perform? Because I don't think we picked the team based on form.
Well, you got to remember, Misbah dropped Sarfraz, right? Yeah. So, but he kept Shafiq. I've got a lot of time for Shafiq. I think he holds that 5 or 6 slot pretty well. Yeah. But I think his last year or so hasn't been great. And, I've got a lot of time for him. I've spent some time with him. He's another guy who's always happy. He's a good guy to have in the team. He's a positive guy. He's got good values, but everybody gets to the end at some stage. And I think I think now, if you look forward the next 5 years, if you replace Shafiq with Shadab Khan or somebody else, are you going to be better off? The answer is yes. And problem is with Pakistani Test cricket, you're currently ranked 7 or something, right? 6 or 7.
Absolutely.
So if you don't change, nothing changes.
No, you got nothing to lose.
So,
yeah.
So, but to answer, so that's on Shafiq. But yes, at a broader level, there's obviously some cronyism. There's and the PCB's been like this forever. And I mean, I even take it a level above. Look at the cricket council that you've got, the cricket committee. You've had your third resignation in a year on that. And
Just
why?
today.
Yeah, but you know why? It's because there's some people on that committee who have too much power who should never be on there because they're living off all their mates. And then even look at the coaches that went. Waka, Wazim, Mushi, Misbah. Like, it's like
Yunus.
I park Yunus as separate. Yunus is like, there's a god.
He's up there.
Yeah, but Yunus isn't caught in the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
But anyone that spends some time around Misbah or around Wazim, around Mushi, not so much, but some, like, without fail, everybody says the guys are either with me or against me, right? So they play their cliques and their favourites. And if you're in, you're tight. And if you're not quite in for whatever reason, bang. So it's not a meritocracy with these guys. It's I've got to look after my self-interest. I've got to look after my friends. The Fawad Alam thing's a perfect example. Like, you just think, how does that go on for so long? It's almost only because of pressure from social media.
Social media. It was us.
And it's too late for him now. Like, I love him to death, but it's too late for him. He's unfortunately his time is gone, and that's just one of those things that happen. But yeah.
Back in 2009 when he came, he could have corrected a whole bunch of stuff with himself, right? But he's lost all that time. So I totally agree. So, you alluded to a pretty interesting fact. You talked about the powerhouse coaching team, so-called, that Pakistan has. All the legends, they call them. Misbah, Waqar, you got Mushtaq Ahmed, and you got Yunus Khan. All great players of their times, people look up to. All these youngsters that are playing in the team, they look up to them. How much pressure is that putting on these youngsters that you're saying, very young, very nice guys?
No.
Like, is there a disparity? Is there a communication gap? That's
you have to understand. You have to understand, Salman, that being a great coach doesn't come from being a great player. It can.
Yeah,
you can be a great player, but so even the basic level, being the best player in the team doesn't make you the best captain. Being the best captain doesn't make you the best coach. And Pakistan have this thing of just trading on names. If you look at the EPL, or you look at soccer, the best coaches in soccer, not many of them were players.
No, absolutely.
To be a good coach is actually about communication, and it's about being able to teach, right? And because you were the best player, because you made 10,000 runs, because you did something, doesn't mean you're a good teacher. Doesn't mean you have the patience to work with kids. Doesn't mean that you can build trust with people. I look in cricket. Sachin Tendulkar, the best player maybe for India, maybe their third best or fourth best player. We'll have that debate another time. He wouldn't be in their top 20 captains.
Nope.
He's a horrible communicator.
Yeah.
Horrible communicator. I look at, then I'll do the flip. I look at New Zealand. Stephen Fleming was once touted as the best Test captain almost of all time. He was nowhere near their best player, nowhere near it. But the people who walked out behind him on the field, the Kiwis, and they would have run through a brick wall for that guy. He trusted in them. He gave them faith in their abilities. He picked them up when they made mistakes. He made them focus on the important things. He had them all focused on one thing, not individual little crap. And so when I look at the Pakistani coaching squad, I go, who in there would a team run through a brick wall for? And who's a really good communicator? I look at Yunus, and what I like about YK is he openly talks about how he's even evolving himself as an individual, right? He says, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot now about how I need to be a better coach. He talks about it like it's a thing for him. He's so proud of it. I sense how Misbah is a good leader in one sense. I actually wrote a piece once upon a time about he was a wonderful man, wonderful leader, but I'm not sure that necessarily makes him a great coach. I'm not sure Misbah is the guy I want coming up to me when I've made a mistake or I'm having a bad run and telling me everything's going to be all right. Because Misbah is the most intimidating man I've ever interviewed, and I don't want to be intimidated. I don't want to be intimidated by my coach. I've interviewed Imran Khan, and he was like number 50. He's a pussycat. Misbah looks you in the eyes like this with those eyes, and they just stare at you and just no emotion. You get nothing.
Dead eyes. Yeah, that's what you get from him. Yeah.
Say again?
That's what you get from it in press conferences as well.
Yeah. So if I'm in the team and I'm desperately looking for some support, which is the coach's job. The coach's job at that level is not to teach me how to bat better with technique. You have batting coaches. His job is to make sure I know my place in the team, to make sure that all the team know what the top three things that we're all doing together, to take the individualism away in terms of focus. It's to make me feel like I'm important. I wouldn't get that from Misbah. I would feel threatened. I would feel intimidated. And so therefore I don't think he's a great coach. I compare that with Mickey Arthur.
Yeah.
No one who's ever worked with Mickey Arthur has ever said, I don't know where I stand. I've never been told the truth. I feel like I'm being treated unfairly. But when you have worked with Mickey Arthur, you hear, I don't agree with his decision, but at least he explained it to me, so I respect him. He was honest with me. He told me where I stand. So you don't have to agree with the coach, but at least he's such a great communicator. And he was ahead of his time, even back in Australia. He got fired in Australia because of the homework gate. Remember homework gate?
Yeah. That's how ahead he was.
He made Mitch Johnson, Khawaja, Pattinson, and Shane Watson do some homework. They didn't do it, and he sent them home. And then he got fired for that from India, right? In 2014, Mahalia was.
2014, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But Mickey was trying to change the culture. Mickey said, we have this individualistic culture and people aren't buying in properly, so I'm going to force it home. And Cricket Australia made the mistake of sacking Mickey rather than standing up for Mickey and saying this is the change. You go forward 5 years later, Cricket Australia has a cultural problem and has this whole cultural, did half the board spilled and Sutherland's gone and the coaches are gone because of cultural problems that Mickey was trying to solve 5 years earlier. And what I'm worried about with Pakistan cricket is I'm not sure Wasim Khan, God bless him, is the right guy to actually fix some of the intrinsic problems around the cronyism that stays within the PCB. There's people that have too much power. Wasim Akram, Inzamam Al-Haq, Misbah now. You've got guys who have too much power and aren't coaches. They're in it for whatever reasons they're in it for. They're not aligned in terms of how do we make Pakistan the number one red ball team in the world. That's the most important thing in cricket. Everything else is secondary, right? So they've got to sort that out. And to be fair to Wasim Khan, he talks about how he's slowly trying to peel back the layers and understand it, and that it's going to be a slow process because it's deep-rooted. But this is not a political comment, but I think Najim Sethi was a lot stronger at some of this stuff than Wasim is, even though Najim Sethi, there was areas where he was obviously conflicted. But on the things that he saw that were really important, he just got it done. He got the PSL done. He got cricket back to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Like, he moved mountains, that guy. And, okay, you take some of the bad with the good to get that happen. But Wasim Khan needed to build on that and say, what's next? Now I need to get rid of all these old school players because they're wrecking there's too much fighting about who, what, and why. I shouldn't allow conflicts like Misbah being the head coach and chief selector. That's just ridiculous. Why have I got Wasim Akram on my cricket committee? I've got a guy here named in the Muggo in the Kayam report sitting on my most important committee. And then there's some wonderful people in there as well, right? So Mohsin Khan, I love to death, right? He's a guy that said he's an awesome guy. Yeah. I've spent some time with him, and he's a guy that goes, I don't want to work with anybody that's tainted, and he had to be convinced to work with Wasim Akram, right?
Wow.
And I'm just thinking, why is everybody dancing around Wasim Akram? And there's a big elephant in the room. Remove the elephant.
So why is it so hard?
No one wants to take him on. No one wants to take him on because this is a cultural thing, I think, which is he's got so much power and so many people stick to him because he creates opportunities for them. I remember I was in Pakistan 2017. I made a documentary, as you know, and I interviewed some, I'll say that are now senior sports administrators in the PSL. And we didn't use this footage in the documentary because it wouldn't have been good for them. But I interviewed these guys, and they were working with Wasim at the time at one of the franchises. And I said, he's in the Kayam report. I'm telling you, I've seen with my own eyes and have copies of things that will make your blood boil, that he has his signature on it about things he said he's done and confessed to. you're telling me that this is when Sharjeel had taken the money at Islamabad, right?
Yeah.
I said, so you're telling me that you're feeling so bad because of what Sharjeel's done, yet you're comfortable working with Wasim. I don't understand how that works.
Same team.
I don't understand how that works. And all eyes point to who was the coach, who was the team mentor, and I said, how do you get comfortable with that? And both these guys sort of thought, and I said, he's our hero. So this hero worshipping and this, it doesn't matter how bad you are. If your cricket was good, same with Amir. Oh, he was young, he's handsome, and he bowls fast. Let's forget about the other stuff. There's 250 million people in your country. If you have a bit of cancer, cut it out and give somebody else who deserves a chance. And so, but they haven't done it. They've left it in there, right? So while there's guys like that there that have all this influence and power, you'll always have people trying to suck onto them and leech off them, and you'll always have people too scared to take them on. So someone like a Najim Sethi or Wasim Khan need to just put their foot down and say, enough. 3 months to get out, Wasim, get out. You, Inzamam, time, enough. Misbah, we're splitting your role into two, whatever. But, like, you've got to structurally start at the top with a blank sheet of paper and go, what does this need to look like? And remove all the influences about what people want for themselves and think about what's best for Pakistani cricket.
But is Wasim Khan really calling the shots?
That's my point. I don't think so. I think he's trying. I'm worried that he's too British.
He's too British. Exactly. That's my point. Like he hasn't, in some ways, he hasn't been trained in that culture that he's trying to deal with.
He's missing a moment, right? He needs to create a moment for himself where he does something hard and difficult and shows leadership and stands in front of the camera and says, I'm here today, media, to let you know that Wasim Akram under my reign will no longer be part of what's going on. I've made the call that there's just too much noise around the Kime report. If you are named in the Kime report under my rulership, you're not playing in the PSL in any official capacity. I'm not making any judgment on any of these people other than to say I'm removing the noise because it's holding Pakistan back. Bang. And he hasn't had a moment like that because he hasn't done it with anything. I'm not saying just go after Wasim, but there's so many things he could have done that with, and he hasn't done it. And so therefore, when you don't show leadership, it's hard to get people behind you, right? So I'm not saying he's not doing it. I think he's being a very good administrator. Obviously, the PCB is making money. The PSL went really well. There's a lot of talk. Like, it's going in the right direction, but some of the hooks that are holding Pakistan back, he really needs to tackle, and I'm not sure he's ready to tackle them yet, or he doesn't want to tackle them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably. I like what you're saying. Maybe it needs to go to a point where things like these could be tackled, right? So again, what's going through his mind? It's hard to predict or imagine.
Yeah.
Right?
You think about, and again, I don't want to be political. Let's keep the cricket, but I look at Imran Khan. Imran Khan steps up and goes, I'm fixing the domestic system. We're going to only have 6 tier 1 teams because it's the same as the Sheffield Shield in Australia. And that was the best red ball domestic comp in the world. And if we're not going to change, and we can't have 28 teams, whatever it is, because that's just lining pockets of all these people that don't really care about cricket. So he put the vision, which is make us best in red ball, and he made the change. And you can agree with it or not agree with it, but he explained it and he was clear, and everyone therefore has to fall in line. So Imran has done it, right? In a Pakistani sense. So you need to see this type of thing. Like, Wasim's got so many opportunities to come out and go bang, and he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, if he understands the whole culture piece or not, we don't know. And it takes
I think
some
he
time.
does. I just think he's probably still
playing safe.
He spent 15, 20 years in the British system, right? Which is a very different system to the Pakistani system.
Yeah, the expectations are quite different, and the outcomes are quite different, right?
Yeah, sometimes
you always have to please someone.
Sometimes you just need to get up and be prepared to tell people to get fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is absolutely where are you going. Like, I see these PSL teams, or not PSL, the domestic teams have been announced. Whole bunch of coaches. Every single ex-player finds a spot as a coach. So is he trying to please that player power?
Yeah, but at a domestic level, I'm not so fussed. Like, the reality is coaches aren't doing too much in a PSL team. The captain's doing most of the work. Captain's doing the bowling changes. And now Even if you look at Multan, it's not even the captain.
Yeah.
It's the guys with the stats. It's cricketers in behind, sitting down doing So Shan Masood's running Multan, but Shan's armed with all this data and information that almost guides him on how he has to run the day. It's
really
the piece of the cricket intuition only kicks in if something's going wrong on the plan. The coach isn't driving that. And to be honest, all the international players that come in and go, they don't care who the coach is. They come, they take the check, they play some matches, they go. Right? Like the coaches aren't teaching these guys to be better batsmen or better bowlers.
Yeah, exactly. So, you talk about something which is the captain isn't driving much. Let's go back to our Pakistan versus England series. How much did Pakistan's captain drove those results that Pakistan faced? Azhar Ali. I'm focusing on Azhar Ali.
Yeah. People went hard at Azhar in the first test when you're in a winning position and lost, but that wasn't Azhar's fault. As I said, I think.
When did Pakistan lose that?
I said when Shadab Khan got himself out is the time that the match went from winning to losing. That was the moment. And unfortunately his bowlers didn't come through. Mohammad Abbas to me was like James Anderson, looked really pretty but wasn't effective.
Totally.
He kept, he tied up. I'm sorry, it's probably a little unfair. He tied up one end, and the runs weren't leaking, but no one was taking wickets at the other end. And so I used to, I compare that to say Warner McGrath. McGrath would be economical, not necessarily take lots of wickets. Warner come the other end and get the wickets. So, so he didn't have a bowling part on the other end. Shaheen Afridi, I think, was disappointing. I don't think he bowled maybe one or two good overs. I reckon he wouldn't have bowled more than 5 or 6 overs. I think, to be honest, in the whole series, I think Shaheen probably bowled 5 or 6 overs he'd be proud of, and the rest were just overs. They weren't anything great.
How about Nasim Shah?
You know what? I'm putting him in the same bucket as Mohammad Musa.
Oh.
Insofar as, they're both quick and they're both young, but same thing. I think Nasim he probably had 10 overs he would be proud of in the whole thing. And there was a little fiery spell, I think, in the second test where he looked really damaged. He got a short one, I think, to Joe Root, and he caught him, which was nice. But we need to see more of that. We need to see more of that. Nasim, if you're going to bowl 150, like you need to go into full Shah Bakhtar mode and want to hurt people, right? Yeah. You need to intimidate. Mate, you're 6'3" or 6'4", you're 150km/h bowler. Intimidate. Because I look at how the team's made up. I love Mohammad Abbas. I like what he does. He's going to tie up an end. He's a bit like Philander. Yeah. Shaheen Afridi. You can see Mitchell Starc in there. And if he can put a Yorker into his game because he swings it well, and again be a bit more intimidating, get up here a bit more, I think will be good. And then Nasim Shah is just the tearaway. But he needs to work out what kind of bowler he wants to be.
So the combination was right, is what you're thinking.
I think the combination's okay. I think the combination is good. And you see a Shah bowled okay in parts as well, right? Yeah. But they didn't have the problem was you win test matches by taking 20 wickets. And they didn't have enough sustained time where the batsmen were under pressure. They would bowl a good over here, and then your mate at the other end would bowl a bad over. But I can't think of too many sessions where their bowlers just owned the session. They might have owned parts of the session, but they didn't own the whole session. There wasn't sessions where they were taking 5, 6, 7 wickets. And whereas I look at England and guys like Stuart Broad come out and just go bang, bang, bang and turn the match, right? So they just missed that. But I think Shaheen, how old would Shaheen be? Shaheen's what, 21, 22? Nasim is
20.
Yeah,
20.
20. Nasim is what, 18, 17?
18, yeah.
Like that's a young bowling attack. That's a young bowling attack, and you see that's probably one of Yasir Shah's last trips as well. I think he was just too loose, too often. He got wickets. The thing about Yasir, he keeps taking wickets, but he leaked a lot of runs. And in England is not like India or Australia where you can make 500 runs in a first innings. In England, if you make 300 runs, you're in the game. And so every run counts. The only thing I would be critical on, going back to your question about Azhar Ali, the only thing I'd be critical is some of his field placements. He was leaking a lot of runs through third man and didn't put a third man. And I think he could have put a third man and saved himself 50 runs, 30 to 50 runs. But I can't blame him for much else. Like he can only work with the cattle on the park. And if he's 4 bowlers and they're good bowlers. All those bowlers are really good bowlers. They couldn't get it done. It wasn't because of field placement. It was because the majority of wickets in a cricket match either fall caught behind in the slips or to the keeper, LBW bowled, right? That's like 80% of dismissals. Absolutely. That's on the bowler. That's all on the bowler. That's not on the captain. And I thought his bowling changes were good. I think, as I said, he leaked a few runs just by not having a third man at one point in time. But what else can he do? The guy came out. He made his 100 as well. Like he's.
And again, I like where you're going. Pakistan's bowling, they couldn't live up to the expectation, but they're young guys. They got lots of years ahead of them, and they can come back from this. Pakistan's batting, on the other hand, what are your thoughts on that? Because you're two guys that are leading the coaching team are both, they were stalwarts for many years, Yunus as well as Misbah. They played with the same guys. They brought them from scratch up to this level. They couldn't figure out what was going on.
Well, as I said, I think Misbah's confused what his top six is. And so when that's confused, it's hard. If I was picking that team, I would have had, after the first test, I would have dropped Ali.
Abid Ali?
Just his technique, he was playing away from his body a lot.
Yeah.
And I would have
very subcontinental style.
I would have tried Imam instead. And I would have had Azhar Ali opening and Shan at 3. I think Shan's the next captain of that team, and I think Shan needs to own the number 3 spot. And I watched what he did in the PSL, where he dropped himself from opener to number 3, and as soon as he went to number 3 in the PSL, his stats and everything went phoom. So I like Shan.
Those are big words. I see Shan as the next captain of Pakistan.
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
It's a combination of a few things. I think he's going to be rock solid in your top 3. Like he's not under threat. To me, he reminds me a bit of Alistair Cook. He might only have 2 or 3 shots, but his best shot is leaving the ball. And in red ball cricket, that is for a top 3 batsman, that's the best shot you need. And if his only other shots are a nudge through covers, a hook shot, and a cut shot, I don't care. Because his job as an opener is to face 100 balls. It doesn't matter about the runs. He's just got to get through the 100 balls. And he did. Okay, James Anderson's got on top of him, but that's okay. People have bunnies. Like James Anderson's got on top of a lot of people over the time, right?
A lot of people. Yeah.
The majority of the time. So if England's his hardest test, wherever else he plays, he's going to be well suited. So. But I'd like to see him at number 3. I'd like to see him own number 3. I'd like to see him bat long times at number 3, make some big scores at number 3. I like how he thinks. Like as I said, I saw him captaining Multan, and you remember when he made captain of Multan, everyone's like, "Why would you make Shan captain of Multan?" Look at the result.
Yeah.
And he's very calm, so he's got a bit of Misbah about him in terms of his demeanour. You don't see him get riled up. He's got some things happening in his private life that have matured him. I think it's public knowledge he has an autistic sister that he's very fond of, and he does a lot of work with. So he's got some a handicapped family member that he works hard with, and so he's got a broader perspective on life rather than just I'm getting a lot of money and look at all the girls sending me DMs on Instagram. So, so I think that's important. I think at the age 26 or 27, whatever he is now, or he's got enough life skills under his belt, especially if you're going to bring guys like Shadab Khan, Nasim Shah. If this is the future of Pakistan, then you need a little bit of a senior, just culturally, to drive them through. And I think he would be a nice balancing sounding block. And I just like how he thinks about cricket. He's always there's a story going around. You might not know this. He was struggling 2 years back, maybe 2.5 years back, and off his own bat, he reached out to people you might not even consider reaching out to. He reached out, for example, to Jared Kimber and said, "Jared,
really?
Yeah, I know you do a lot of this data stuff. Give me the data on my game. Why am I getting outside off stump?" Like he went and tried to find the ways to get better. So he's always he's invested in himself. He's invested in this. You
don't often find that about Pakistani players, to be honest.
No, you don't. I mean, I look at guys like, and I'm going to drop some names, but they're friends, but they can shoot me on WhatsApp later, right? But I look at Ahmed Shahzad.
Yeah.
He wasted the first 5 or 6 years of his career. And it wasn't until he got married and had a kid that he switched. And you speak to Ahmed now, and okay, he's still got his character and his personality, but he now knows what's important and what's required to be a top-notch cricketer. But
Great
the time's
talent.
gone.
Yeah.
The time's gone. I look at, but that's just one example. Whereas Shan, I think for whatever reason, Shan's just a solid guy. And Pakistan needs, you look at when Pakistan's been at its best under Misbah and under Imran.
Yeah.
These are solid dudes, man.
Yeah.
These are like solid dudes. No, there's no shit sticking to them. And Shan's in that mold. And I sense that, if I was building my team for the next 5 years when Azhar Ali's had enough, I would put Shan at 3 and say, Shan, you own 3, and next 5 years you take this team to number 1.
So what's interesting about your statement is Babar Azam's worked really hard to cement that number 3 slot. Where will you put him?
Yeah,
if Shan drops on 3.
I'd have Babar at 4. You don't want Babar coming in 3 balls into an innings.
Oh, absolutely. Totally.
Well, sorry, totally. You can. You need that if you don't have a good guy like Shan. So, as I said, Pakistan is you're actually blessed with openers at the moment. I think Imam's unlucky not to be in the team. Abid's okay, but on that swinging ball, he was just playing a lot from his body in defensive positions, which I didn't like. Whereas Shan is watching and Shan was doing this, Abid's poking. So that was the difference. I think Imam would be good. We forget the fucker is there as well.
Yeah.
So there's kids available. Like there's people available in the top 2 spots. I think Shan and Baba 3-4 is really strong. I think if Shadab Khan was 6, you just got to find a number 5. There's 1,000 number 5s out in the Kai Trophy, right? So
So I don't know if it's too early, but would Heatherly be an option at this point, or
this is the mistake you don't want to make, which is you can't have one good PSL season and now you're cemented as a Test cricketer. Heather wouldn't know the first thing about Test cricket, right? What he knows is I get to face 25 balls and I've got to hit the ball over the fence, and that's what got Shadab Khan out when he made that 40 in the first Test. He was 43 off 50 balls, and in his mind, I'm sure he's thinking, I've got to keep pushing. Dude, it's day 2. Just calm down. So, and he got himself out hitting out. He didn't need to play that shot. And that's the good side and the bad side of T20. I'd be looking for someone that's got maybe a couple of thousand runs under their belt in first-class cricket, who's maybe 21, 22, who you could slot in at number 5 and build another 5 years on. You don't need also Australia made this mistake as well. We kept looking for the next Shahid Afridi or the next Shane Watson or the next actually, we were looking for Adam Gilchrist for a long time. We were trying to find a number 6.
Oh, God. That's a hard one to find.
Yeah, so how do you find a number 6 who's going to make 100 off 80 balls consistently? Like
change the game. Yeah.
And so we spent 15 years looking for this guy. You can't. It's like South Africa finding a Jack Callis, or you just got to accept that you have these once-in-a-generation cricketers and they'll change your makeup for a while, but that's not how every great Test team in the history of the world, from the West Indies in the 80s, the Australians in the 90s, even currently with India, it's 6 batsmen, the best keeper that can catch, and then 4 bowlers. And that's why, to be honest, that's why I like Rizwan in the Test team, because I like the fact that his glove work was phenomenal. And you compare that to Josh Butler. Josh Butler could have cost England that Test series with his glove work.
Almost did. He saved it with his batting, to be honest.
He's just lucky he got a good innings in.
Yeah.
So that's what I see about the future of the Test team. I think there's enough young talent. You just need someone steady at the top to drive it. Sarfraz, I think, did a good job. Sarfraz was quite steady, and he led in his own way. He wasn't necessarily an extrovert. Neither is Shan. Neither was Misbah. But people love Sarfraz, man. Even I watch it even at Quetta when I was hanging around with the Gladiators, and just the aura that he has.
So why is that?
Because he's about his team. He's about his people. With Sarfraz, next to him is always his son and his wife. And it's a family thing. And they're everywhere. And then the young players come up and they see that this is something to aspire to be a good family man, to have good values. I look at some other teams I won't mention, and all the young guys are hanging out and they're on Instagram sharing all the private messages that the girls are sending. You see none of that at Quetta. None of that. You saw none of that at Multan.
Oh, is it? Wow.
No, because you had strong characters. Multan had Shan, had Shahid Afridi. you had guys there. Moeen Ali was in there.
Yeah, Moeen Ali.
Yeah, you had, and then you had some of the youngsters. To be fair, you had Tom Banton, you had Livingston, you had some youngsters who were there, obviously in a stage of life. But that was Ilias was there, Zishan Ashraf was there, but they're being surrounded by these mature guys who are showing them what it means to be a good, to be part of a team.
Yeah, good role model. Exactly.
Fawad Ahmed was at Quetta as well, and I was watching Quetta because Quetta had Shane Watson, Ben Cutting, Fawad Ahmed. These are all kind of family guys. Safraz was leading. Moeen and Nadim Omar, like they create a family atmosphere, and it's nothing like it. It's a family. That team is glue, and some of the other teams were not glue. They were just guns for hire. And what you don't want, my transition with this is you don't want the Pakistani test team to be guns for hire. You want them to feel like a family.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and that's why someone like you're going to need some senior guys like Shan around who can do that.
So I think what I love about your, just the review of the test team, I think I love what you're saying. Pakistan team, it's very promising to hear that they're in good hands and the future seems bright, minus 1 or 2 spots they have to figure out. Seems like the future is bright. T20 team, we both saw 1-1. Yeah, first game kind of, Pakistan was sort of on top and then that just got away due to rain. And I don't know how much rain is going to play more part in the future cricket in England. But anyways, going back, second T20, they lost fairly easily after scoring 195. Second T20, they were able to defend that. Seemed like they learned from their mistake. Who was a standout star for you in that series? Hafiz took the player of the series.
Yeah. Hafiz is cool, right? Because everyone writes him off all the time, but he keeps delivering.
As long as he's not facing Stain, he's fine.
Yeah. So big fan of Hafiz. I think Hafiz is an underrated player, full stop. It has been. He might be one of the most underrated players Pakistan's ever had. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he was the player of the series and the best player for Pakistan.
Yeah.
I know people go after Babar Azam, but man, it's T20. Like, you can make 5 ducks in a row and then come out and be a hero and win a match. If you make a duck in T20, it doesn't matter because there's only 120 balls. So you've only wasted. At the end of the day, you've wasted a ball. I don't know. You're right about Hafiz, but yeah, there's been a lot of criticism around Baba. I don't know why.
It is, and I'll come to that. A comment came up. Heather has a century in first class. Heather Ali has a century as an opener in the first class tournament.
Okay.
Doesn't come as an opener. He comes as an opener, not number 6. So he plays up the order. So another opener.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to our comment of, is he ready for the test team?
You can't judge it on a T20.
Yeah.
I want
totally agree.
I want my test players to be judged on what they've done in the Qaid, not what they've done in a T20 international.
Dennis, going back to Pakistan's golden days, they threw a whole bunch of players without much first-class experience. Like Wasim Akram was one of them. Didn't have any first-class experience, just threw him right in. Quite a few players were.
So let's go back, right? So yes, Pakistan has traditionally done this stuff.
Yeah,
and you've got Imran Khan, who was the driver of it. Imran Khan was putting these guys out, right? But Imran Khan's now sat back and watched and gone, we need to build a first-class system that builds first-class players. And you either believe in that or you don't. And if you don't believe in it, keep picking Azhar Ali to go into the test team. If you do believe in that systems and processes and patience will build a strong base so that instead of going from first to 8th, you go first to third for a long period of time rather than doing this, then invest in your first-class system and pick players who perform there first. Otherwise, you're just going for the next shiny thing. You know that movie Finding Nemo? And there's that fish Dory, and she sees the bright light, and she goes, "Oh, bright light!" That's what Pakistani cricket is like, right? You're going to consistently be like this, 1 minute up, 1 minute down, unless you invest in a system and a set of processes and that are going to build a base that keeps you from falling ever below 4th or 5th, and you're always top 4. At the moment, you could finish 12th in a year because you could just there's a chance that Pakistan one test team could pick friggin' 5 guys out of the PSL because they once hit a century off 50 balls. And you just go, like, why? They're 2 very different games.
So, Dennis, you talk about Australia has that, the Sheffield Shield, 6 teams, 25 million population. Easier to pick 6 teams out of. Pakistan is 220 million.
Yeah, which should make the competition harder and better.
Harder, exactly. So what does it do for a young guy who wants to get in the team and then still can't get in because there's so few teams?
Yeah, but come on, someone. Let's be honest. There's 6 first tier, but he's also built the second tier. There's also the level below that's also getting funded, right? So let's not get lost in the hype of we've killed off all these teams. We haven't. All we've done is done Division 1, Division 2, essentially, right? And if you're playing Division 1 in a country of 250 million people, you're a bloody good cricketer, and it should be hard to get in that team, and it should be harder to maintain your spot. And if you can do that, when you do make the Test team or the ODI team, you should feel I'm ready. That's the aim of that system. Yeah. That's the aim of that system. The aim of the system is not play PSL, have hit 180 runs in 3 matches, and bang, now you're number 5 in the Test team. What? That's ridiculous.
So, okay, I'm going to go back to T20 team. People seem to be commenting on Heather Ali. How did you find him? First T20. How did you find him? You've seen him bat in the PSL.
Exciting. He's obviously very exciting talent, young, fearless. And sure, we should get behind him. But next PSL, there'll be another Heather Ali or 2. And the next one, there'll be another 1 or 2, right? So my challenge to Pakistan is how do you take a Heather Ali after 1 good season and extrapolate that for a 10-year career? And that's the challenge of the Pakistani system. And at the moment, it's going to struggle to do that. It's all on Heather. There's not much support. So how do you do that? What you don't do is you don't throw him in the Test team and blow his confidence up because he doesn't know how to play red ball cricket. Right, so
I'd be telling him to shut up.
Shadab could be different. Shadab could be, if you said to Shadab, you're going to play number 6, and and you give him the parameters. Like I said, I want you to, in the first 12 months of Test cricket, I want you to average close enough to 40. Average 38 to 42 for me. That's the sweet spot. Get me there. Anything better than that, you're a legend. But that's all I'm expecting from you. And if you can take 1 wicket every second game, because I'm not expecting you to bowl much, awesome. And don't let me down in the field. Because my vision for you, Shadab, is you get that right, then our next challenge is how do we move you up to number 4 or to number 5? And so then it's Shan, Baba, Shadab, and then the next, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're building some foundations. And so I asked, like, where do you play Heather Ali in the Test team? What, you're going to open with him?
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. So white ball, no worries. If you want to play him in a 50-over match, absolutely take the chance. But look at England's the perfect example of trying to make white ball cricketers into red ball cricket. Look at Alex Hales. Look at these kind of guys. They keep bringing him, and they just fail because they don't have the temperament. Very different game. So I love Heather. I'd like to see Heather Ali have another good PSL season. I want him to go and play in some other leagues. Like, I'd love him to come down here for the Big Bash, maybe in January. I'd love to see him. Obviously CPL's on there; he's not there, but maybe he plays the Lankan League that's coming. But he needs to play a few more leagues and learn a few things about his game, learn a few things about the world, what it means to travel, what it means to be a young man around all this glitz and glamour, and let's see if he's cut from the right cloth for that type of stuff. Because next season, there'll be another 3 or 4 Heather Alis. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. So, question for you. So, what message, you talk about Pakistan's very much investing in building their first-class structure. What message does it send to first-class cricketers who want to be get into the Test team when you see Babar Azam waiting 11 years after topping first-class averages to get into the Test team, but you see a whole bunch of youngsters just performing in PSL and making it into the team? What message is that sending?
So we've discussed this. It's a horrible message. The reality is, cricket selection is not a meritocracy. Because you got the best runs or the best stats doesn't mean you deserve the position. Yeah. If team selection was just done on numbers, then you could do it with a robot. You don't need humans. So there's more to it. There's things about character. There's things about what you want to do with your life. All kinds of different things. How you engage with your teammates. Blah 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 blah. So that's all really important. every country's got an example of Babar Azam. In Australia, there's guys like Martin Love. There's guys like Jamie Siddons. There's lots of guys with 10,000 first-class runs who never played or might have played one match.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Hussey had to get 10,000 first-class runs before he even got into the Test team.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So Mike Hussey didn't play Test cricket till he was 30.
Yeah, I agree. So Misbah's another one.
That's just part of it, right? So not everybody, just because you made runs doesn't mean you get a gig. And sometimes it's not fair. That's life. But if the trend is that if you make runs, that's where the pool of people are getting picked from, that's important. That's important. If the trend is that I'm making runs in PSL and they're making the Test team, that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. There's no longevity in that. There's no interest in that. And it doesn't work. As I said, I can't think of too many guys who started their career in T20 who have gone on to have awesome careers in Test match cricket. Even the Pakistani sense. Let's walk through the Test team now. So Babar Ali, not T20. Shan didn't start in T20. Azhar Ali didn't start T20.
Babar Azam.
No. Shafiq, no. Rizwan, no. Maybe Shaheen Afridi.
Shadab.
Yeah. But they've come in from the bowling side, and I think the bowling side is a little bit different to the batting side because the game's probably a little bit more similar. But batting in Test cricket is very different to batting in T20.
It is, absolutely. And I think what I saw about the Pakistan-England series is they were only, like, from the Test series, there were only 3 players that actually transitioned into the OD in the T20. Babar Azam, Shaheen Afridi, and the third one was Rizwan.
There you go.
None of the English team actually made it to the T20. So I think it's become quite different now, right?
Yeah.
Dennis, it's been a wonderful, wonderful hour. We've talked for that long. I'm gonna bring you last few questions. One question I have is, where do you see Pakistan T20 cricket going?
Oh, it's strong. It can only, it was already strong. You got to number 1 in the world using with a domestic league playing overseas, right?
Yeah.
Now you got a domestic league at home, and if people forget, was it PSL 2? That must have been PSL 3. At PSL 3, Lahore Qalandars had 180,000 people come for tryouts.
Yeah. I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's if that's the depth of people that can come from one city combined with the interest, if people are pushing from underneath, then the quality
when the team wasn't winning. When the team wasn't winning.
Yeah, correct. They just keep putting L. But if the pressure's coming from underneath for those spots, and it's such a swell of pressure, then all things being equal, the cricket can only get better. So the T20, the international T20 stuff's going to be strong, but I'd be focusing on getting PSL right and getting PSL cemented as the second best T20 league in the world. That'd be my first goal. And it should be, because it's paying well. It's attracted 36 or 38 internationals last year. It's only going to get stronger once people get comfortable with the safety element. The grounds are fantastic. The way it was run was brilliant, to be honest. Apart from the opening ceremony, which was a dog's breakfast. Everything else was excellent.
Absolutely. And we don't want to talk about that. But again, I think this is why we're so looking forward to PSL, coming back, finishing off this edition, and then going on to the next one. But before I let you go, which team do you see winning PSL 5?
Oh, it's hard to go past Multan, but I think Zalmi is the smoky. I think Zalmi, if Zalmi could have 3 good games, then it's all over. But I think Multan deserve the title, but they've got to back it up. The question will be, which team has the most internationals? Because if you actually look at the PSL 5, PSL 5 was actually dominated by international players.
Yep.
So the best batsmen were the international players. Kami Akmal made a couple of hundreds, but apart from that, the international players is what made the teams good or not. So whoever can get the most international players back in November into the country and will take the risk with COVID, I think's got a good chance.
And I think if memory serves me right, PSL 3 was where pretty much dominated the whole tournament. Lost
went home
in the final.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, well, KP, Shane Watson, they didn't travel.
Backed out. Yeah, and then they very tame game. They just lost it, right? So I think international players do bring that much caliber. So
absolutely.
Last question. You've picked Zalmi, as potentially that can win the PSL?
No, Zalmi and Multan. I think the final will be Zalmi and Multan.
Not Karachi?
unless there's bakshish.
Bakshish. There's plenty of bakshish from here, that's for sure. Okay, so you know what? That's for sure. But Dennis, thank you so much for joining BaatShaat again today. It has been a pleasure, chatting with you. And I think you and I can keep talking for a long time. But we have our lives to get back to, for sure. You do, right? But it has been again a pleasure. And so what I'll do is I will make sure that I bring you back when the PSL begins. We'll talk about it. We're going to talk about which team, if your teams have made it to the final or not, because Lahore and Karachi will be looking at your statement and saying, "Whoa, what is Dennis talking about?" We got so many people backing us, right? We'll find out.
I'm ready for another quiz too, so I should jump on one night.
Yeah, I got to bring you up, but this time it's going to be about PSL. So we'll see. It's a game show will be coming back on. Awesome.
Thanks,
thank you, Dennis. Exactly.
See you,
it's
mate.
been a pleasure. Okay, goodbye. Bye. That was a good old friend, Dennis. He joined us all the way from Australia. It was a pleasure speaking with him. And with that, we bring our show to an end tonight. Make sure you do like this video, share it with friends and family, and make sure you liked and subscribe BaatShaat. It's a YouTube channel, tons of cricket content, tons of great people come to our show. Make sure you watch all those videos and make sure you subscribe and like. And make sure you press that bell icon, because every time you do, we go live with a lot of players. And you can actually get to hear a whole bunch of stories from their lives, from their cricketing days, and all that. So it's been a pleasure bringing you another one of these. Pro Wrestling News Bite says Azhar Ali will inshallah become match winner. I have no doubt. The way he started pro, it was a breath of fresh air to see a Pakistani player playing with so much flair, so much aura, as if he belonged to the international arena. It was such a wonderful feeling to get that, to see that. Once again, thank you so much for watching BaatShaat. It has been a pleasure hosting Dennis, as well as having you with us. And keep watching BaatShaat, and we'll be back again shortly with another episode. Good night. See you later.